Welcome to Scoop du Jour, Maddie Gardner. This is such a special episode for me because you are not only a very incredible guest, but a friend. We will get to that in a moment. You are a former UNC cheerleader, former news anchor. You've done some sideline reporting for cheerleading. And many people probably know you, Maddie, as a cheerlebrity. We kind of strayed away from calling you that. But I think probably some people listening would kind of use that adjective to describe you. So thank you so much for being here. This is so neat to be able to do this. I think, like I said, we'll have to jump into the friendship part, but first, thank you for joining me.
I'm so pumped. To jump straight into it, I got a text from Jourdan, everyone listening, and it just said Maddie. And you know when your friend sends you a text of just your name, like no punctuation, nothing else, and you're like, oh, something either great or horrible has happened. And I was like, oh my gosh, what? I can't even tell you the thoughts that ran through my head. Like, what is Jourdan about to tell me? And then you asked me to be on your podcast, and it was amazing. It was an amazing Maddie text.
Yes.
So yeah, just keep in mind when you text someone like just their name, instant anxiety and panic.
You know what? I didn't even think about that. I was like all caps, Maddie. But you know what? You know when you have this like, so in doing this podcast, like I'm X amount of episodes in, and you and I were talking, like it's such a passion project. It's been so fun for me. And I have this list of like people I want to get, people I have gotten, aspirational people. And then like it just hit me and I was like, I also have like really badass friends who are amazing, who are so relatable and who people need to and want to and should hear from. And I was sitting at work the other day and it just hit me. And that's when I was like, Maddie.
I was
so here we are. For some context, you and I, we didn't have the most graceful start to our friendship. It's a funny story.
Do I remember it?
Remember? We were sorority sisters. We went to college together at UNC. But remember we were going on that trip to the Bahamas. And we weren't really close.
There are two sides to this story.
Yes. Okay. We were going to the Bahamas on a spring break trip and we just weren't close.
That's freshman.
And what happened where we were like all staying at my parents' house in Fort Lauderdale and everyone was like, Maddie's coming. And I was like, wait, Maddie's coming? I don't think I knew that you were coming. And then the long story short of it is like that started like a great friendship our freshman year. And here we are.
It did.
That was my version. I'm just being goofy because we really were like acquaintances. We just weren't close.
Yes, we were in the same sorority, but we weren't technically like in the same friend group in the sorority, I guess. Exactly. But I was friends with someone else who was in your friend group, which is why I got the invite. Yes. And then, I don't know why, because that whole trip was a mess because we were 18 years old and trying to plan a trip to the Bahamas. Yeah. And we were like, oh, we don't have anywhere to stay. We have to stay at Jourdan's parents' house. And I never... but that's great.
Yeah. No, and it's like that was like the best part or the easiest part of the trip because we ended up going to the Bahamas and then we go on this like, student run spring break trip, like you said, as 18-year-olds, and we get there and they're like, by the way, like your resort's overbooked. And we were like, perfect.
And you saved the day, you and your father, who helped us find a place to stay. I remember we were panicked.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like you said, we were 18. What were we going to do with debit cards and $100 or something?
I had no credit. Yeah, exactly.
So oh, my
gosh.
On
the beach is probably what we could have done, but praise God, we didn't have to do that. Thanks, Jourdan's dad.
Thanks, Mr. Black. Another former podcast guest.
Yes.
So funny. But, here we are so many years later and we're both kind of in similar boats because we were traditional TV news and we've left to become corporate girlies. And I guess maybe should we start there and work backwards? I usually start with like where everyone began, but all we ever wanted to do was be in TV. And I think that was something we really bonded over at North Carolina was the journalism school and doing all those TV things together. We shot each other's stuff all the time. Talk to me. You did the traditional news thing and where you are now. what was the decision to kind of leave and make that transition?
Right. And so right now I am doing corporate crisis communications and public relations for a Fortune 40 company here in North Carolina. Before that, for I guess 6.5 years, I was in local news in Greensboro, North Carolina and Charlotte, North Carolina, anchoring, reporting. I think, Jourdan, you and I share the fact that we feel like we've probably been in news longer, because even when we were in middle and high school, we were already trying to put together our little resume reels and shooting ourselves on camera and doing fake newscasts. So it seems like I was in news a lot longer than 6 years, but ultimately made the decision this year to step away, searching for more work-life balance. And there are many different things in the industry that I was ready to step away from. But it was such a tough decision. And actually, I mean, you were a huge part of me being bold enough to advocate for myself in that position, knowing that you had done it just a few weeks, months before. I mean, very recently, because I left in September. So it's a few months after you.
Yeah.
But just knowing that there is more out there.
And the work-life balance thing that you mentioned, do you feel like you have that now? Like, do you feel, I think for people who don't know about news, like just how much it takes out of you. It's not your traditional 40-hour work week, and the things that you're missing out on. I think that's kind of something that I didn't realize until I got kind of older, right? That like all of these weekends and nights and holidays were spent away from friends and family, and you're missing a lot of things.
You do miss a lot of things. And the things that you are able to go to and not miss, you feel guilty for being there and missing out on work. I remember it was 2020, and it was after George Floyd was killed. And there were protests and demonstrations in cities across the country. And during that time, my sister was giving birth to my twin nieces in Austin, Texas, and I was still in Greensboro, North Carolina. So I had the week off to go be with my sister and welcome my nieces into the world with my family. We were all there. And the guilt I felt for not being at home during this major news event when our city was relying, it seemed, on local news coverage to know what was going on. And I just, like, the whole time I was there, I was worried about not being at work.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, that's just one example of the many times that that's happened.
Yeah, that's such a good perspective too. Like, when you do get the time, you feel guilty. That's if you get the time, right? There was so many times where you're denied, you don't get to sync up on going to that friend's wedding or being at the baby shower, the bridal shower, just the vacation you want to go on with your family or your significant other, whatever it might be. You might not even get it. So I think, like you said, making that bold decision, it's not an easy one, because when you're really passionate about something, it's hard to step away. But do you feel like fulfilled in what you're doing now, and like you made the right choice for you and for your lifestyle?
Definitely. I love where I'm working. I love my coworkers. It's been a really good and smooth transition. And I mean, there are so many good things I can say too about local news, though. I don't want it to come across that I was ungrateful for the experience and the opportunity, because goodness, I wouldn't change anything. And local news matters so much, and it's important, the work that those journalists are doing, but it is work. I mean, it is grueling. It is underappreciated, underpaid. And I think it was the right move at the time to try something new.
Yeah, it also a very good point, right? Because we got to do all of these amazing things with journalism, right? It takes you across the country or just across your community, and it takes you to new places, right? Like you maybe wanted to always end up in Charlotte, but you didn't know you'd be there, or you didn't know you'd travel to cover a hurricane, or all of these different things you got to do. Does a particular like story that you covered stick out as something that you feel like you really touched someone or really mattered, or just one of your favorites?
I think my two biggest journalism memories, in 2017, I got to cover the men's NCAA basketball Final Four. And UNC won redemption year, and Jourdan and I graduated in 2016, and obviously that was not great for us in the last 4 seconds. So my news station sent me to Phoenix the next year to cover it, and that was right out the gate. They're letting me do this, and it was just amazing to have that access because it was something that I loved, and I honestly grown accustomed to as a cheerleader at UNC. I was always on the court. I was always in the game and watching it. And so just to go back and do that a year later was awesome. I think my second big one was a national story, and it's when Reverend Billy Graham passed away. He, a North Carolina icon, I mean, worldwide icon, truly. And it just garnered national media attention, and to be there covering a story for your local audience that major networks are also covering, and getting to see former presidents there at the funeral and celebrities. And it was just, it was personal for me because my family obviously had ties to him, and just growing up watching Billy Graham on Sundays at your grandparents' house, so I knew who he was growing up in North Carolina, especially. And to be there for that was just a really memorable experience. And everyone was just so kind. I was telling someone about it this week because my company was doing a volunteer event there. And I was like, we were there at 0:30. It's 4 a.m. We're doing morning live shots for local news. And the people who were working at the Billy Graham Library were bringing us fresh baked chocolate chip muffins and coffee. We're so thankful that you're here. It was just very memorable.
That's the good part. Those kind of moments, right? They're so little, but when somebody comes out and they thank you, or they just, are appreciative, or they're, oh, I watch you and I love this story you did, or I just love, waking up with you when you did mornings.
And for every one of those, I can tell you about standing on the side of an interstate in a snowstorm and not being able to use the bathroom for 14
in the
hours.
Yellow vest, right?
And I hate the yellow vest.
I was telling someone about that this week, standing on the road whenever I would do news from stepping away from sports occasionally, and anytime I was doing traffic or weather, that yellow vest over, not to mention
your
outfit, but the branded weather gear, or just outerwear
that was orange for me, 2 sizes too big. And my mom would always laugh because she was like, oh, it looks like you're wearing, my birthday, what year was it? I think I was turning 23. I was on the side of Interstate 40 in Greensboro, North Carolina, by myself with my camera in the traffic vest, covering one of those interstate signs had fallen. And I was out there solo in the ugly vest in the middle of July. And I was like, happy birthday.
Happy birthday. We've spent a lot of birthdays doing crazy things. And I don't mean partying. I mean,
we're not talking about the Bahamas anymore.
No. We're talking getting paid, $10 an hour. So, okay, you talked about the 2017 national championship. And because you were at so many iconic moments, we have to go back to cheerleading. So you were a UNC cheerleader, and before that, a competitive cheerleader on the highest level. And at the beginning of this, when I mentioned kind of cheerlebrity, you grew up in cheerleading, but you kind of grew up in this spotlight of cheerleading in an era before social media, and then when social media became so big. I don't think I've ever asked you this. Do you remember how or why or when you kind of took off, and what it was that people were like, Maddie Gardner is it? And we kind of love her, and she's, people became fascinated, right?
I think you mentioning social media is a huge component of this story. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I started cheering when I was 4 years old and was not even old enough to be on a team yet. So I just did individuals, is what we called them. It was just, you went out there by yourself and perform this little routine to some like Jock Jams music, and we're scored. And my very first competition, I need my mom to fact check this, actually. Maybe you'll have to call her up after this to make sure this is all factual, because again, I was 4. I think I won. Like, I loved it. And I was the youngest in my division, and I still had a lazy R. Like, our colors were purple and teal, and I couldn't even say the word purple. It was purple. Like, that's how young I was when I was doing this. And since then, I just stuck with it and moved around to different teams. I truly, truly loved it. But again, that was 2000. No, I'm not that young. That was 97. Like, so no social media. I mean, no Wi-Fi, no anything.
Right.
And then I guess around middle school, I remember YouTube became a thing. And after we would compete at our competitions, our routines would end up on YouTube. And people would start commenting on them and sharing them. And at that time, I had short hair and I couldn't put it in a ponytail, and I wore a headband, like a sports headband, and I flipped my hair out like Cindy Lou Who, like straight out like this. And it wasn't for this reason, but it did draw your eye to me because I was different. Sure. It's like if a Rockette has different hair, you're going to like, that's so people were commenting like, oh, who's the blonde girl in the headband? You know, like, she's not too bad at this. And from there, it just kind of took off. And then Twitter message boards, actually before Twitter, like cheer message boards were a thing. Then Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And from there, people were just like following teams and athletes and fangirling. I remember figuring out what that meant, you know, like fangirling over their favorite athletes and their favorite teams and just creating this little community. So yeah, that's really it. I am trying to, it's so weird to talk
it just took off from there.
Because for so long, I was trying like not to be Maddie the cheerleader after I was done. I was like, oh, well, I'm, you know, a journalist now and I'm doing this and this. But honestly, in the past 2 or 3 years, I've been like, no, like I need to embrace that. And like, that was a huge part of my past, and it's now part of my present. And I just, so yeah, it's weird to talk about. And I don't know that I've ever really tried to explain it to someone. So hopefully that makes sense. Scoop du jour listeners.
Well, you know what? It's funny you say that, because I do recall, like, you know, you coming into college and being a UNC cheerleader, but, you know, trying to maybe separate from the competitive side, right? Because it's one completely different, which is something I do want to talk about. But, you know, you kind of want to start fresh, right? As anyone does in college. But I like that you say you're trying to play into it because you work really hard at it, right? And I think it's interesting because it's everything. And as someone who did competitive cheerleading, not as long or as intensely as you did, I know the work that goes into it. I know the demand that it takes on your body physically and mentally. And so I think for a lot of people who, you know, don't think that it's a sport, I certainly disagree. I know you do. Talk about the work that you put into it. And then, you know, just kind of now being able to embrace that was a big part of your life, and you can still kind of be that person.
Right. And I think it's a fine line of being able to own up to your accomplishments and the things that you've done in your past while being humble about it and having that humility. So it's not like, oh, I'm so great and wonderful.
Absolutely.
So I think that's probably why it's weird, which I'm working on. We're all working on it. But yeah, I think what shocks people the most is like, I didn't go to prom. I was at a cheer competition. I didn't go to, you know, winter formals. I had practice. We were about 45 minutes to an hour away from my gym, and at least 3 times a week we were driving to go there. Homework in the car, food in the car. Like, I can count on my hand the times like we sat down and had a family meal, and it's all holidays. We had practice on Easter. We had practice on Christmas Eve. You know, like it was constant, and my whole family was invested. My sister was my main base, so she held me up in the air. And my parents were at every practice, every competition, front row. So it was like, that was our family time too. It all revolved around this sport. And so it really infiltrated every aspect of our lives. And goodness, I'm so grateful for them. Looking back at it now, like the time they spent, the money they spent, just getting off work early to make sure we were on time for practice, all of it wouldn't have happened without my mom and dad. And I wouldn't have stayed in the air without my sister. So.
No, I love that. And I completely get it. I'm curious if you've thought about, it's a two-part question. Did you ever have any injuries, and what are your thoughts on putting your children in competitive cheerleading?
I had several injuries. Fortunately, none were too severe. I tore some ligaments in my knee. I got dropped on my head a couple of times, probably had some undiagnosed, like minor concussions, but I definitely hurt wrist and back. And I think I have more injuries now because of cheerleading than I did when I was a teenager, because I'm like, oh, my back hurts. Maybe that's because my leg was behind my head for like 20 years of my
stretching.
life. Yeah. That's great, Maddie. I have thought about, like, if I have kids and they want to do competitive cheerleading, and, I will support whatever they want to do. Absolutely. But it is so different than it was when you and I were doing it. And another reason for that is competitive cheerleading. I mean, is social media.
Yeah.
Is social media. And I think that, the sport is changing. The sport is trying to gain the worldwide respect that other sports have, especially Olympic sports. Obviously, we're pushing for cheerleading to be in the Olympics, and there's talk about, what year that could happen, because the Olympic Committee has signed off on it being an Olympic sport, which is exciting. It's definitely becoming a worldwide phenomenon, if it wasn't already 10 years ago. I just think that there's so much more awareness and respect for it now. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely a conversation for
later
on, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I know a lot of, like, I have family who are football coaches, and, when they had kids, and are you going to let your son play football? And, they know the dangers of it, but they also know the rewards of it. And so I think that it's just kind of like
anything.
Decision, truly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like anything. And I think just people don't probably know, like, the risk, like you're saying, but it's still an incredible team sport, and one that requires so much discipline and strength and all of those things that you've mentioned. When you took this sport to UNC, what were some of the highs and maybe even some lows there? I think a lot of people don't know what goes into being a college cheerleader. You obviously get access to the pomp and circumstance of being at a Power 5 school in the ACC, but I imagine it was just difficult missing a lot of things and committing all of that time as well.
Right. Yes. And it's very different what I was doing in high school as a competitive cheerleader and what I was doing at UNC. I like to say, when you're a competitive cheerleader, you are the show. People are there to watch you and your team. And when you're a college cheerleader, especially at a school like the University of North Carolina, who doesn't compete, you're part of the show instead of the show. So you are an integral part of the game day experience. But it is very different. And it was very grueling athletically. We were training with the football trainers in the football stadium twice a week. We had practice twice a week. The Fridays before game days, we were out on the practice field, making sure everything was right. And just the uniformity of it is very different, rather than the, wanting to stand out that I think a lot of competitive cheerleaders strive for. It's wanting to be uniform and to blend in and to excite the crowd, which is the point of cheerleaders in the first place, especially at football and basketball games. And we also cheered for soccer and baseball and gymnastics and volleyball. So it was quite the change. I did cheer in high school for 3 of the 4 years, I think. And so I had some sideline experience, but nothing compared to the level that UNC expects out of their athletes. So it was a wake-up call. And honestly, I think I had to relearn a lot of the cheerleading basics because UNC was focused on being sharp and hitting your motions and making sure your arms were in the right place and, you know, everything down to what earrings you had on. They wanted it to be very uniform. So it was an adjustment, but a very good one. No regrets there.
Yeah. I mean, it's always so cool. Like, I think just to see everything that goes into it. And I think as someone who always loved dance and cheer, like I always watch the cheerleaders and I love like watching that with the band and everything that goes into just making college football or college basketball like what it is. Like, to me, it's the whole experience. And you got to be part of so many cool ones. So you talked about like cool journalism moments. What are some cool UNC moments that you got to experience as being part of the cheer team?
That's tough. Senior year was a great year for UNC athletics. Obviously, 2016, the men's basketball team was in the national championship game in Houston. And so
won't talk about the ending.
No. And I mean, like, redemption again.
Yeah.
Do I love Villanova? No. But I've healed a lot from that. 2016, the football team was also in the ACC championship game. And honestly, when I was watching this year's game, I was like, deja vu. We're with Wilson and Bank of America, and oh my goodness. And then actually, this is one of my favorite freshman year, NC State at home, is when Gio ran the punt return back for a touchdown.
Yes.
And actually, I was at a charity event not too long ago, and they were auctioning off a signed photograph of Gio running the ball back in the chrome helmet. And I'm in the background, like, freaking
Did you win
out.
It? Did you bid on it?
I did not bid on it. Listen, I was a journalist then.
Right. Salaries
so I did not have
had to be saved. I understand.
To bid on that, but I was in the background and I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, it's the worst looking like jump you've ever seen.
That's like an iconic football moment, though.
Yeah. And so I think those were top 3 for me. I mean, just the time you spend with your teammates on the road and exploring other universities and towns when you travel was amazing too. But
I remember you telling us about coming back from Notre Dame and getting to like just tour the campus. And I might have made this fact up. I should have fact checked it before we came on the mic, but you told us you guys toured like the campus chapel and like the specks of gold from the dome go into the helmets.
Apparently.
Yeah.
I am so impressed you remember this one.
I remember that.
When I was talking about
like part of the team by association. Because I was like, yeah.
You were.
I remembered all your bits and pieces.
I feel like you went to a cheer cocktail with me too.
So it's so funny you mentioned that because I was looking back at photos. And so whenever I do these podcasts, I, go through everyone's like social media, recently just to get some ideas of like who they are, like family and all that kind of stuff. Just, more detailed questions. And I was just scrolling through your Instagram, Maddie, and I found that photo and it was from Cheer Cocktail. But you know what it made me think, like you're talking about social media, and this was like still before Instagram was like really, really a big deal. And I was like, you would get so many likes on these photos. And you know what makes me think, this question I was wanting to ask you, like you would still do kind of these, sponsored deals with cheer companies and you had makeup stuff and luggage. But I'm curious if it ever crossed your mind what it would be like to be in college now with name, image, and likeness.
Yeah. That's crazy. You were a great cocktail date, by the way, just
Thank you.
For everyone who is wondering.
We had lots of fun.
We did have fun. I was not, it's a weird dynamic because yes, we were part of the athletic department, but we weren't athletes in every sense.
Okay.
We didn't get like preferred registration for classes. We didn't go to the athletic dining hall. We didn't, There were a couple of things so like
That's
you,
true.
the cheer team at Carolina, at least when I was there, and I don't know how it is now, it might be completely different, but we were part of the department, but not technically athletes in every sense of the word. So that wasn't as much of an issue for me at the time. It definitely, at the beginning of my time in college, I had a lot more deals and sponsorships and brand things like that because I was still in the competitive world. Like I was taking my step out of it. But then toward the end, it wasn't as much. But I am glad that is an option for athletes these days.
Yeah.
I always thought it was so strange. And I had a couple of classes with Marcus Page, who is obviously a star on the UNC basketball team because he was in the journalism school with us.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember hearing his perspective, and I don't remember what class it was in, but this was one of the discussion topics. And, he was like, I walk past the student store and I see my jersey there and I see it being sold out, like everyone buying it up. And I'm not making any of that.
Yeah.
And I don't think he said this, but in my head, I'm thinking like the reason they won a number 5 jersey is because of him. It's not because it's the number 5. So it was always strange to me that wasn't in place. So yeah.
I think about that all the time, like specifically with jerseys. But I forgot how cheerleading wasn't recognized formally, at least there through the NCAA. So there were some loopholes that worked in your favor, but then, obviously the fairness side of it is like, other athletes didn't get it, but
right.
Interesting how it all works out. Talk to me about being able to go on the other side and then report for ESPN at Worlds, was it?
So it was at what's called the Summit, which is
yes,
the largest event of the year for teams level 1 through 5 in cheerleading. So cheerleading goes level 1 through 6, and level 6 teams compete at the World Championships, and level 1 through 5 have the opportunity to compete at the Summit, which is in the same venue. It's the end of the season event. So yeah, this year, back in the winter of 2022, I got a call from someone who is, well known in cheerleading and has done some of the broadcasts before. And he was like, hey, your name got thrown around in this meeting. Would you ever be interested in doing anything like this, like reporting for a cheer competition and like doing sideline stuff, essentially? And I just freaked out because that's always been the goal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I was cheering and wanting to do broadcast, it always was in the back of my head. Like, I know my competitions are being televised, and I hear the announcers talking about my routine, and there never really was a former cheerleader who was doing the commentary or the reporting. They had wonderful, wonderful broadcasters, former Olympic gymnasts, and they were amazing at what they did. But at the same time, they didn't know the sport like a cheerleader knew the sport.
Right.
And so I think that just that opportunity was a dream come true. And through that, maybe I'll do some more.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's just so cool. And I think I've always like wondered and just what it's like to kind of hold that microphone, and I can, think about the first time I held a mic just in local news, and it's just so exciting. Right. So like, and then every time you move up in TV, it's just so cool. But like, there's got to be something really neat about just grabbing one that has an ESPN flag on it. I mean,
I carried it around the whole weekend. Like I was that girl who was like, this is my microphone this weekend. Like, and all the wonderful production crew was just like, yeah, we'll take another picture of you with the mic, Maddie. I was like, okay,
this angle looks really good.
This one's good with the lighting in the back. No, they were wonderful. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of legacy in that. And again, it legitimizes cheerleading, right? That they show the competition this aired on ESPN too. So
yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of it that I think is so important, right? The things that are airing on the worldwide sports leader are sports. So we can leave it at that.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about sports, but I think personally, I know a lot about you, but I know a lot of people don't. When you're not now that you're, doing a 9 to 5, you come home from work. Now our schedules are so crazy different, right? You go into work at 9 or 8 or whatever time it is, and you come home at 5. But it used to be, for me, I would go in at 2 p.m., come home at 11 p.m. on a good day. What is it like having this normal schedule, and what does your day look like now? Like, what do you do when you wake up? What do you do when you come home? Like, what's your routine like?
Yeah, so I try to go to the gym at 5:30, make the 5:30 a.m. workout class, because I just think that that's the best way to start my day and be productive.
Is it still Pure Barre?
It's not. I've been going to a different gym.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
I loved bar classes. I did. And I actually taught bar classes in Greensboro, and it was a great experience. But that studio is just very far away from where I live in Charlotte. So trying to branch out and do something.
Any workout is a good workout.
It is. It's great. I'm getting so strong, Jourdan. Just wait till you see my arm muscles. No, I'm joking. So yeah, go to the gym at 5:30, and then my office is actually like a 30-minute drive. So I get in the car and listen to Scoop du Jour and drive into work. I work from around 8 to 5. Yeah. And I leave and come home and spend time with my boyfriend and the dog. And it's been great. Decorate for Christmas and see friends now. I know. So I have a great group of friends here in Charlotte, and we try to do monthly get-togethers, whether that's go out to dinner or go to someone's house. And for so long, because I worked until 8 at night in news, we would have to do like these late get-togethers. And I'm actually hosting our holiday gathering tonight. And I was like, I mean, y'all can come over at 6 if you want. Yeah. It's so early, or just whatever. We have so much time now. So I have found that, and then just the flexibility that an office job offers. Like if you need to work from home, if you need to leave earlier, if you get your work done, like there's a lot of autonomy in it that I think many people don't realize doesn't exist as much on the local news level, because you are always on deadline. Yeah. And you always have something to do. And if you are like you and I, where your newscast was the last thing you did of the day, there was always a risk of taking a break and not getting it done. So totally.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think a lot of people, if you've only had that experience of an office job, it probably doesn't seem that enticing, but I can't tell you how much better it's been just for, mental clarity and flexibility, and just like you said, seeing friends and family. You mentioned being an aunt to twin girls. Now do you get to see them more often?
I get to see them so much, and I'm so happy, because even if there's like a week difference between when I see them, they're saying so many more things, and they have these like personalities. They're 2.5 now, and they're just like, today I was feeling sad about some news that I saw on Twitter, and I was just texting my sister, like, can I have a baby video? Which are not even babies anymore. I can have like a girly video, because that's what I call them, the girlies. And it just makes you so happy. And I will also say, I think, the work-life balance, the physical differences of being out of news are real, but the mental health difference for me has been noticeable. And it was a big reason, actually, of why I made the decision to step away. The people who are closest to me and know me best told me when I was trying to make this decision, you're a different person on Friday nights than you are on Sunday nights. Like after you've gone through a week of work, like you are drained and you're just kind of like a shell of yourself, because I was so sad about all the things that, we were reporting on, because that's the reality of it. The news can be very sad. So
yeah, that's such a good point. I think one thing people don't know about news, not only is it that, but you're always putting on, right? So you might, like you said, you might be having a bad day, but then you have to come on air and be the most cheerful, happy, excited person. Hey, Pop!
He's like, it's my turn now.
My turn. He's like, Mom, we have a holiday party in 10 minutes, which I will let you go.
No, you're fine.
But you're kind of an actress, right? You're an actor, and no matter what kind of day you're having, no matter how you're feeling, you come on.
Absolutely, Jourdan. If you are sad about a horrible crime that you're reporting on, and you were given the opportunity to talk to the victim's family, and you have to go on air and, just pull it together. You can have a horrible personal day, and there's definitely a mask, I think, that you wear, and it's a fine line of being authentic and being professional, and that's just something that people in that profession have to do. And then there's no off switch, right? Like, even if now I can turn my notifications off on my news apps, or maybe switch the channel, but that's it wasn't an option. So
true. Weekends are weekends now, which is really nice. And it used to be, I can actually vividly remember, and this podcast is about you, not me, but I think I said this in the episode where I was like, let's call it Scoop du Jour. But I vividly remember being at a spin class on a bike when the former Arkansas football coach Chad Morris we found out that he was being fired, and I just left the class, and it was like a 90-minute spin, and I think we were like 20 minutes in, and I was like, oh, there goes the rest of my class. So, and it was, I think I maybe was working later in the day, but just any time can be breaking news. And I love what you said earlier, though. I certainly don't take for granted any of the moments I had, and I think we're both really grateful for the opportunities, because it led us to finding ourselves and to growing and to being these professional women and being able to make these career moves. So I think it's really cool that we have those experiences, and especially now that we can relate on them. So you made this big, bold move. I'm sure it took a lot of people to get you where you were today. I ask everyone, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? Or a good piece of advice?
Yeah, I mean, so many people, absolutely, that you mentioned. I think right now, and I've kind of already touched on this, but owning your success. I think my default is to downplay everything. Like even today, Maddie, this press release is great. Oh no, I had so much help. I didn't. Like I did that, like in cheerleading. Maddie, you're so good. Oh no, I'm not that good. Like, owning your success, but being able to maintain that level of humility. A lot of times, especially women, we're taught to shrink into the background and not take ownership of that, but just being able to say, like, you know what, I am good at my job, or I was really good at that sport. Like, thank you for acknowledging that. And I accept that compliment.
I love that. I think a lot of people need to hear that. So thank you for saying that. It's so good. What else besides, like, you love working out, but do you guys watch TV shows at the end of the day? Like, are you binging anything? What else are you doing with your spare time now that you have a little bit more of it?
I know. I
planning Christmas parties. You're such a good host.
Honestly, you're such a good host. Are you kidding me?
We have good moms who taught us a lot.
We have wonderful mothers who, yes, absolutely. I watch the same shows over and over. Like, I have my comfort shows. Schitt's Creek, New Girl, The Office, like One Tree Hill. Okay, I mean, those are like the ones that I always go back to in the end. I try to branch out and watch like new things, and it's just like I don't know what's gonna happen, so I don't like it.
No, I totally get. I totally feel that. And then, like, when you do live with someone, they're like, "Do you want to watch something together?" And I'm like, "I would really love to go watch Gilmore Girls."
I would really like to watch Love Island. If you're down, just turn my brain off for a little bit and see the drama. Yeah.
Instead, it's White Lotus, which I can get behind.
Okay, so real fast. I just finished season 1 2 days ago because I wanted to hop on the train.
Okay, season 2 is so good.
I've heard season 2 is better.
Season 2 is better.
I think the characters were amazing. The actors were great. I was just kind of underwhelmed.
No, same. We didn't love season 1. We were just like, it's so weird, for lack of a better term. But season 2 was so good. And did you ever watch The Bold Type?
I watched a little bit of it.
Okay, so Sutton Brady is in season 2. Remember Sutton, and I love her.
Well, I love Audrey Plaza, so I feel like, and Jennifer Coolidge.
The actors in this one are really good. And, I think they said this on the Morning Toast or the Toast, which I always listen to. Nothing really happens in each episode, but I think something big is going to happen. And maybe we're like 5 episodes in. nothing really has happened, but you're just kind of hooked to it. So that's better than the first season because it wasn't like so hooked.
Mm-hmm. And the score, like the music in the background, the score of the show, I guess, I think it's called A Score of Movies. I don't know if it's in TV as well. It makes you feel anxious the whole time. Like the drum beats and the like, even if they're just washing their hands, you're like, oh man.
I know. It makes my heart race.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's so good. But, you'll have to let me know when you watch season 2 because I'm curious. Okay, finally, you have some fun travel coming up, but you've traveled a lot of fun places. Does a great travel spot stick out to you, or like any travel bucket list places you have coming up?
Ooh, you'll appreciate this. I love Florence. I love Florence, Italy. Yeah, because you studied abroad there, right?
I did.
Yeah.
And we just got back from there in September. We went
That's
back.
right. That's right. So actually, I think we are planning a teammate on UNC cheerleading is getting married in Tuscany next year. So
UNC cheerleaders love Tuscany, don't they?
We love Tuscan weddings. This will be the second, you know?
But a beautiful spot.
Yeah, amazing. So I think that's on the list. I'm ready. I haven't been out of the country in a while, and I just got my passport renewed. So like I'm ready to go.
Let's go.
That's on the list there.
You have some time. Oh, I'm so glad. Maddie, you have to go host, which you do so well. Where can everyone find you? We could do this for hours and hours and hours.
And I'm down.
Next time, we're gonna have to have our third member of the trio, the love of our lives, Madison Cavalcari, Mad Cav, is gonna have to join next time. But
I'm sad she's not here.
Where can everyone find you?
Please find me, not physically. That'd be weird.
No.
On Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Maddie Gardner. That's where I am. I dabbled in TikTok once upon a time, but we'll see if I get back into that. I mean, I have this ring light for a reason, so we have to figure something out. Can I say like one more thing?
Oh, please. Because we can say as many things as you want.
It popped into my head. I want to say, don't be afraid to walk away from the things that are no longer serving you.
Oh, I got goosebumps.
And I think as an athlete, you can relate to this, and maybe many of our sports folk can as well. You know, we're taught winners never quit, and you never quit, and you never give up. And especially on your dreams, you can't give up. You can't give up no matter how hard it is. And I think my biggest lesson in the past 2 years is it's okay to walk away. And you don't have to call it quitting if that still triggers you. You can say that you're just stepping away from it to better yourself and to better your life. So that's another piece of advice that just, popped in there.
I love that. And I think it's such a perfect way to not only end this, but to kind of just like think about the new year, right? Like you took a huge leap of faith, and so many people do. And I certainly don't think that, leaving something that you really cared about, but that, like you said, might not be serving you is quitting. It's just maybe turning or pivoting. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great way to look at it. So thanks for sharing that. It gave me goosebumps.
Well, I'm so proud of you. And I just want you to know this final thought that, listeners, Jourdan and I served on the executive council for our sorority, and Jourdan was like way more important than I was. She was literally in charge of recruiting cool people to join the sorority. So that's like a really big task. However,
with a lot of help.
Don't downplay your accomplishments.
Okay.
I was the house manager.
Okay. Wait. Actually, we can't let you go. Hold on.
Okay.
Let's talk about living in the sorority house.
Okay, so I was the house manager, and part of the house manager job, we had like 2 things we had to do. One of them was to do a fire drill, just like once a semester, and that was it. The other one was to approve the menu for our wonderful kitchen staff. And every day we had soup du jour. Yeah. And so every time I see your podcast or you post or something, I think of Chef Tom and house mom, Miss Debbie.
Oh my God.
The soup du jour.
I have 2 funny things to say. So my little in the sorority, whose name is also Jourdan, thought she's from a small town in North Carolina. And she is like one of the most wonderful humans in the world.
Congratulations on your engagement, Jourdan.
Yes. Beautiful engagement.
Yeah.
She thought for like a year that soup du jour meant that I was picking the flavor. I think that's like the funniest / cutest / like also craziest thing ever. Like she was like, wait, you don't pick the soups here? I was like, what? She was like, wait, I thought soup du jour meant soup du Jourdan.
Because
and I was like, no. Like soup du jour means like soup of the day.
Soup of the day.
I thought that was so
I love that. That makes it even more special in my book that your podcast is named.
Second, I thought when you brought up the menu, you were going to bring up the fact that when we lived in this sorority house, all we did was prank each other. And
No. All you and Madison did was prank people. Yeah. I was the target of many a prank, but I was never on the prank.
Yeah. There were definitely some other main targets, and it wasn't like a bullying thing. It was like a funny, friendship thing. But one of our favorite, so Maddie, as the house manager, would send out via WhatsApp or what was it, GroupMe, the menu of the week. Yeah. But we would try to beat her at her own game, and we would make a fake menu with fake things. Like that kind of sounded real, but then they'd have like some kind of twist that would just be bizarre. So, like maybe the meal that week would be like, I don't know, like dinner would be like baked ziti and lunch would be like salmon salad. I don't know. But we would do like, just like weird things. What are some of them? I have to pull it up. Like shrimp bar with toppings or like hot dog carts or like just weird
things like
bizarre.
You pranked with the soup du jour a lot.
Oh yeah, we would make funny soups.
You sure did.
And then we would do random things like if it was Maddie, but we would do like Kristen's choice and just put random people's names of things that they would choose, like make your own like turkey sandwich or something, but like something we would never have, and it would just be weird, and everyone would be complaining like, why would we have turkey sandwiches? Like that's just like when everything else would be so elevated. It was, I'm not thinking of good examples. Raspberry dippers. Cubed beef. One time we said cubed beef, and everyone was like, "What cubed beef?"
Cubed beef was definitely on there, and just like, I can't even. We need to find them.
Oh my god, we have to find them.
I know that Celia Bettinsoli still has it. I know she still has them.
Okay, and then she would try to prank us back, and one time she put a old dirty scarecrow in my bed. I opened my bedroom,
but then it became like Jourdan and Madison are like the boy who called wolf, because then real things would actually happen to them, and we'd be like, that didn't happen, and they're like, no, like here's the security footage of it happening, and you're like,
no one would believe us.
And then the house manager had to get involved.
Oh my God. I also thought with the fire drill, you were going to talk about when there was actually a fire, but it was snowing and Madison had a boy in the house and he had to jump off the second floor out of the snow from the second floor.
The firefighters
saw him. And we had to distract the actual house mom, not Maddie, the actual house mom, so that she wouldn't see the boy sneaking out.
Make sure we weren't doing these things.
Oh my God. We have to do a whole nother episode about memories. Memories.
Yeah, you did call your room the manor.
I'm going to post the fake menu on the Scoop du Jour Instagram.
I cannot wait. Raspberry dipper sounds really accurate, though. I think that was
Matt Stafford's wife. She'll post like TBTs on her thing. I'm going to start doing that. Just make it a Zeta memory book. That is so funny.
My gosh.
Oh my God. Now I'm giggling.
Yeah, no, this is a great way to end it.
Great way to end it. I love you. This has been so fun. You're welcome whenever. Okay, so everyone can find you, Maddie Gardner, and we'll always be rooting for you. I'm so excited for you, and this has been so fun. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, maybe some more exciting cheer things coming up soon. So that's
Is that
a little
teaser?
tease. It's a teaser.
A little teaser. News anchors love teases.
That's right. That's right. Watch at 11, but not really because I'll be asleep.
Thanks, Maddie. Love you.
Love you so much. So proud of you.